This episode is all about the potential behind a molecule you probably haven't even heard of and what early research and real-world stories suggest it could do for women in midlife. Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie. If you are here for the first time, thanks for tuning in. I'm Natalie Tysdal, and my background is in journalism, and I've spent nearly 30 years translating complicated health topics into plain language. My goal is to ask what you'd ask and make sure that you have clear information to guide your choices. Today, we're going to talk about a molecule that could be really beneficial to your health. You'll hear how it's being used, why the science is still unfolding, and how it fits into practical decisions about supplements, sleep, and managing menopause symptoms like headaches and poor sleep. My guest is Chris Burres. He's a research engineer, and he is the founder of MyVitalC. Chris has spent over 30 years manufacturing and supplying this very molecule to research labs, long before it was even mentioned in the health world. He's now leading studies into its role in sleep energy and challenges that so many of us face in our 40s and 50s and beyond. I love this type of information, the cutting-edge nature of it, and digging into how these types of things can help us feel better and live longer. Before we get into the interview, I have something for you. It's a checklist of questions you can ask yourself before you start any new health product or trend. It's a filter that I use myself and I created, so I decided to give it to all of you. I use it for things like a new diet, a new supplement, or any type of program that I see, because so many are all over our Instagram, our social media. We see it everywhere. So this is the filter that I use. Again, it's a free checklist. You can get it by going to my website. You will see it when you go to natalietysdal.com. Be sure that you're clicking that subscribe button wherever you're listening today for new episodes that drop every week. And come join me on Instagram and TikTok too, at Tysdal, where I share more health stories and answer your questions. All right, let's get started today with my guest, Chris Burres. Chris, thanks so much for joining me today. I have a lot to learn.
Natalie, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. Things that I really love to do. I love being a geek, right? So as just like I look, and then I love geeking out about science and having fun on podcasts. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's always fun for me to learn. That's how I became a journalist and got into health news. Tell me how you got into it and about the molecule that you're going to explain to us today.
Yeah. So I from a very young age knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. So when it came time to go to college, I had to figure out what I was going to study. And today you might say, oh, I'm going to study entrepreneurship because there's lots of whole entire courses of study on entrepreneurship. But back when I went to college, I researched for my book. I have a book called Live Beyond the Norms. Actually, that's my podcast. I have a book called Live Longer and Better. Every now and then they get juxtaposed. And when I was researching for the book, when I went to college, there was literally only one entrepreneurship course in the entire country. And I'm not even sure I would have gone down that path. My thought process was, I'm good in math, I'm good in science. What's the fastest way to the highest salary so that I would have money to invest in a business, right? And that was mechanical engineering. And a couple things went wrong with my plan. So one, studying mechanical engineering is a tough course of study. It did take 6, not 4 years. I did get a minor in computer science and math. And the next thing is I actually started the company with my business partner before we graduated. And the way that worked is there was a molecule recently discovered here in Houston. The molecule, we call it ESS60. It was discovered in 1985 at Rice University, which is also here in Houston. And the 3 scientists who discovered it won the Nobel Prize for that discovery in 1996. So a short 11 years from discovery to being awarded the Nobel Prize. Robert and I started manufacturing that molecule in 1991, a full 5 years before they were awarded the Nobel Prize. And the way that ended up happening is my business partner, Robert, was separating the material, right? So it comes in a number of different molecules. He was isolating the material at the Texas Center for Superconductivity. That's an organization housed inside the University of Houston campus. And one day, his professor, actually a very famous in the superconductivity world, I'm sure you've never heard of him, Dr. Paul Chu came in and he said, hey, you guys are young kids. This molecule, this ESS60 molecule is selling for $6,000 a gram. You should go start a business. My business partner, Robert, is from an entrepreneurial background. I joke he did a back of the napkin calculation, which had only one line, $6,000 a gram. And he was off and running building the equipment. And it turns out to manufacture this, by the way, it's a naturally occurring molecule. So if you collect the soot from a candle flame, right, put a cold steel plate over a candle flame, you'll get parts per billion or parts per million of this ESS60 molecule. So it's naturally occurring. But if you want quantities sufficient enough to do scientific experiments, throw in a health supplement, you actually do need to manufacture it. And to manufacture it, you need to vaporize graphite, which turns out to be one of the hardest materials on the planet to vaporize. So when you shove these graphite rods together, you need temperatures of the sun to vaporize those graphite rods. Yeah. And then it needs to be at an inner environment, needs to be at a reduced vacuum. So there's lots of challenges here. And since I was studying mechanical engineering, they brought me in to help design the equipment, help do the drawings. And, we've been manufacturing it ever since 1991. And what's special about this molecule is the way I describe it is it performs as well or better than the current best materials in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. This is often where people get nervous because we're on a health podcast and that crazy scientist just said inks, batteries, tires, and photocells.
First thing I thought, of course.
Yeah. No, I think no one in your audience woke up this morning, looked out at their car and thought, I wonder what part of my car battery I should be consuming on a daily basis for my health. Hopefully nobody's thinking that. There are some biohackers who think that way. And but the story gets a little bit worse because there's one shape on the exterior of this soccer ball shaped molecule. I don't know if I described it. I'm holding it up. If you're listening, the molecule I'm holding up looks like a soccer ball, where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. And the 20 of the shapes on the exterior of this soccer ball shaped molecule, ESS60, are the same shape, not the same formula, but the same shape as benzene. And benzene, although it's ubiquitous in our society, is known to be toxic and known to be carcinogenic. So they thought this molecule would be toxic. They put it in a toxicity study because they thought with all these spectacular applications, they thought man would be working with it on a daily basis. And when that happens, you want to know its toxicity. Instead of being toxic, the test subject that they gave it to, in this case, Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group.
Wow.
So the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, peer-reviewed published research. I'm proud to share that my lab provided the material. My lab is mentioned in that original study is because of this ESS60 molecule dissolved in olive oil. And I'll just kind of wrap this up. Our most consistent testimonial is people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night.
Wow. So that's been how long that you've been manufacturing it, that now people have successfully been using it?
Yeah, so we started manufacturing it in 1991. That study came out in mid-2012. In mid-2013, well, so here's the real story. In mid-2013, we started getting these phone calls from these crazy, wacky group of people called biohackers, and I can say that affectionately now because I am a biohacker. And they were like, hey, how much should I take? That's stuff that was in that study. And what my business partner, Robert, and I heard is that stuff that you sell to research institutions around the world to put into inks, batteries, tires, and photocells. How much of that stuff should we be consuming? And we thought the answer was zero. We actually added not for human consumption to our labeling in mid-2013. Now, that turned into this unique situation where we're getting 2 to 3 phone calls per week from this crazy, wacky group of biohackers. And these calls sounded something like this. Hey, Chris, I have to share with you, my knee pain is gone. And I would say, hey, Joe, you mean the knee pain of your rat, right? Because it literally says not for human consumption on the labeling. And then Joe would say, hey, I get it. If my rat weighs 275 pounds and does HIIT training on Wednesdays and Fridays, should my rat take more on Wednesdays and Fridays? And so we knew what was going on and we were okay with it because in the literature, it was clearly safe. right?
Mm.
But we're conservative carbon nanomaterial scientists. It's new inks. It's hard to get from inks, batteries, tires, and photocells over to something to consume. And so we maintained having not for human consumption on our labeling. Really from that mid 2013 all the way to 2017. In fact, every single quarter, Robert and I, literally in the conference room right behind me here, would get together and like, do we want to be in the supplement industry? And you're in the industry. You would probably agree with me that it's generous to say that the supplement industry is challenged.
Yeah, it sure is.
Right. And so we're like, do we want to be in the supplement industry? And the answer was no. And in fact, in that time frame, I found a peer-reviewed published research paper that said that 50% of the supplements that are on the market that this research group had purchased didn't have in them what they said they had in them, right? This is just not an industry that Robert and I wanted to get into. Finally, at the latter part of 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following, that's how everything changes these days, right? Started talking about all the benefits he was getting, taking it on a daily basis. And our phone changed from ringing 2 to 3 times per week to 10 times per day. At that quarterly meeting, first we were like, we wish we were smarter and had jumped on this bandwagon a little sooner. And then second, we looked back to that research paper where 50% of the supplements on the market didn't have in them what they said they had in them. And we knew that would happen in this space. And we're the oldest and longest manufacturer of this molecule on the planet, manufacturer and distributor. And we've got the lab, we've got the exacting standards. We've met the exacting standards of, carbon nanomaterial scientists around the globe for so long. We decided that we really should get into this industry. And we asked ourselves 2 questions. The first question is a moral question. Are we comfortable selling it? I take it. My wife takes it. Everybody on our team here takes it. By the way, not a requirement. Like you don't have to clock in and somebody monitors you taking it. Really, the employees here have, just like what everyone has access to is the research, but probably more importantly here is they have access to all the inbound calls and all the inbound testimonials, right? So yes, we're comfortable selling it. And then from a legal perspective, you've got the FDA and the FTC. You got to cross the T's, you got to dot the I's. We're doing that. So we started bringing this molecule to the market, this formula to the market in the beginning of 2018.
In 2018, so that's been a while.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing, tell me about the success, and try to be specific. I know you have got lots of testimonials. So how is it helping people, especially over 8 years?
I'll tell you, I think this I can squeeze in some testimonials in this. A lot of people say, what might I experience on the product? And our most consistent testimonials, people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. That's already spectacular. Right? Like for 2 reasons. The first is, what can you take in the morning to positively impact sleep at night? Right? You can certainly get exercise. That'll help you sleep that night. You can get some exposure to the sun and get your circadian rhythm in line with the rising and falling of the sun, and that'll help you sleep at night. But to take something in the morning is actually very unusual. I was on a peptide bioregulator summit, and the host was like, well, there is one peptide that you could do that. I was like, that's the only thing I've heard of. I haven't tried it, so I don't know. And if you improve your sleep, you will improve your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Just fact. Like it's the most healing and restorative, free piece of medicine you can get. That's a good night's sleep. So that was the kind of the first place that we landed. So when you think about somebody taking a journey with our product, we tend to think of it at 3 months. That has that parallel with our consistent testimonial, where month 1 is that focus and energy. And there's one testimonial I like where we got some product to an influencer. She took the product in the morning, sent in her video that evening. And in the video, she pointed out that she didn't finish her cup of coffee. Now, if you're a coffee drinker, that's one to not finish it. Okay, maybe that's not a big deal, but to notice that you didn't finish it means you usually do finish it. And that was a big deal. And I'll share, I used to be a 2 to 3 cup of coffee per day person. I'm now like a half, 1. It's more about the ritual. It's actually when I take my product. And so I really don't want to mess with my ritual at all. So that's focus and energy. Month 2 is deep sleep. And I think what's actually happening is you're getting deep sleep in month 1, but everybody gets a little bit more or less sleep every day, right? So it's hard to say, oh, I started taking this and my overall sleep, which tends to ebb and flow, got better, right? So I'm getting better sleep. And I lean on here, my business coach shared that for 50 years, he needed an alarm clock to wake up. When he started taking My Vital C, he wakes up before the alarm clock. Now, he's a business coach, right? So he's got late night mixers, late night dinners. None of that matters, except if he doesn't get the product for about 10 days, then he starts to need the alarm clock again. And that coincides with in the literature that this molecule clears out of your system in about 10 days.
Okay.
And then you get to month 3. And we haven't talked about the method of action. We'll probably talk about the boss theory. But the boss theory, the fundamental wrap up of the boss theory is we believe we're reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria.
Okay.
And if you reduce the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, given that you have between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell in your body, except for blood cells, and 2 million in your brain and neurons, if you're reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, you should have systemic benefits. You should have what we have, which are head-to-toe testimonials. So at about the 3-month mark, we start getting so many really powerful testimonials that we actually can't share them yet. We need to do the research. And that's what's driving us to do 4 clinical trials. We already have one. It's in early beta, which is on frequent and severe headaches. That's because of my own personal testimonial, the testimonial of my wife as she was going through menopause, and a number of other testimonials. We're doing a severe and frequent headache study. That is underway, but we're kind of in beta to get participants in that. The next one we're doing is HSCRP. That stands for high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It is an inflammatory marker that is typically associated with cardiovascular diseases and cancers. And so there's already some research. We got a great testimonial from a doctor and his kind of patient cohort. And there is research in beagles showing a reduction in HSCRP. So we're doing that study. And then we're doing a more formalized clinical trial on sleep because we already have an ad hoc study. It was a small cohort of people that went through that study. The most important piece of that study is 100% of participants reported improvements in sleep when they were on the product. So we're doing a more formalized version of that. We also have a cosmetic. So we're doing a wrinkle and age spot study. And those are the 4 clinical trials we hope to have started before the end of the year.
So is it a liquid, a tablet, or tell me more? I don't even know. How are people taking it once a day, you said?
Yes. So once a day, it is a high quality extra virgin olive oil with as much of this soccer ball shaped ESS60 molecule as we can get to dissolve in it. So the recommended serving is 1 teaspoon. So a teaspoon of olive oil. By the way, Brian Johnson, Dr. Stephen Gundry, they love olive oil. They should love olive oil. The data is really clear. In fact, I'll share in that original study, they had 3 groups. This is the Wistar rat study. They had 1 group given water. That was a control group. 1 given olive oil. That was a semi-control group. And 1 given olive oil with the ESS60 molecule. The water rats lived out to about 32 months. That's what Wistar rats typically do. They're the control group. The olive oil rats lived out 18% longer. So they had an extension of life just because of olive oil. So no matter what olive oil you're taking, you should probably take more. And then, of course, the olive oil with ESS60 rats, they lived out 90% longer.
Oh, wow.
So it's 1 teaspoon of an olive oil. It is a high quality olive oil, so it will leave a peppery flavor at the back of your throat. If you're familiar with olive oils, great. We do have a super small percentage of people who are like, it kind of burns my throat. Is it rancid? No, that's the opposite.
That's good olive oil.
In fact, you may have been to a chain Italian restaurant where they'll pour olive oil in a plate for you to dip your bread in it, right?
You don't even taste it, yeah.
And then they'll crack pepper into that olive oil.
That's right.
What they're trying to do is make that inexpensive olive oil taste more expensive.
Funny. I was just in Italy about a month ago, and we did some olive oil tasting, and it's so shocking how different it tastes when you're buying it there from where they where they harvest it and source it. Yeah. Like, this is not the olive oil we know in America. Let's talk about women. You mentioned your wife and menopausal symptoms, but let's talk about women 40s and 50s. What types of changes and things that you've seen for them?
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about the kind of what we think is going on in the body,
Okay.
right? Sleep, first thing, great. Mental, physical, emotional well-being, if that's all we did. Next, I kind of surveyed the medical community and I was trying to figure out what they thought about aging, right? Because these rats live 90% longer. In the medical community, they don't all agree, but they tend to think of it as an oxidation and an inflammation process. And so there's an ad hoc study showing our product to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. There's peer-reviewed published research showing it to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So I'm in Texas. We like to put a big old check mark on antioxidant. When it comes to inflammation, you have to be really careful about how you speak of inflammation because the FDA equates conversations of inflammation with the diseases of inflammation, which are also the diseases of aging. So arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, cancer. So if I come on your show and I say we address inflammation, the FDA hears me claiming we cure cancer, we cure cardiovascular disease. We are not making those claims. What the FDA will allow us to do, by the way, in order to make those claims, we need to do studies, and that's why we're doing studies. Like this is the main driver behind it. What the FDA will allow us to say is what we address inflammation as it relates to exercise-induced inflammation. Now, that's a great answer, and I like it, but I like to dig in more. Like, what is really going on? And we really landed on the BOSS theory. So the BOSS theory stands for buffering oxidative stress system. I mean, this molecule and how it works in the mitochondria is so complex that we just call it a system on its own. And what gives credibility to the BOSS theory is that there is peer-reviewed published research showing this ESS60 molecule gets into the mitochondria. And then from way back in the 90s, we know that this molecule can hold on to up to 6 negatively charged particles. So here's what that looks like. We've already kind of discussed the molecules everywhere, 2 million in your brain cells and your neurons. It's the power source of every cell. And like every power source, there is a negative byproduct. You think about your car going down the road, it's got exhaust. You think about a power plant, there's a smokestack. In the case of mitochondria, it's reactive oxygen species. And I like to picture these reactive oxygen species. If they're left to their own devices, they're like little bumper cars running around your body. And then everything they smack into, they cause rust, oxidative stress, oxidative damage. And that sounds horrible. And it is. But like so many biological systems, we have a way to manage that stress. And that's the internal antioxidants, glutathione and melatonin. So they bond with those reactive oxygen species, and now they can't run around like little bumper cars and do damage. But what happens when you stress a mitochondria? Of course, that begs the question, how do you stress a mitochondria? I point out, if you're alive in modern society, you have stressed mitochondria, right? Smoking, drinking, smog, EMF radiation from your phone, from your devices, stressful traffic, emails, conversations. If you're alive in modern society, you have stressed mitochondria. And at this point, the mitochondria starts producing more reactive oxygen species than can be managed internally. And that's when, if they're left to their own devices, they would run around your body and cause all that oxidative stress and oxidative damage. And that's where the ESS60 molecule comes in. So it holds on to up to 6 of those negatively charged particles so they can't run around like little bumper cars. And then when your mitochondria is able to replenish the glutathione, replenish the melatonin, then it manages them properly. All right, so I have a fun analogy. I don't know if you agree with me. I feel like all biological analogies should start with Mardi Gras. So, I mean, a lot of biology happens at Mardi Gras, so why not? So it's the end of Mardi Gras, and you have these drunk reactive oxygen species on Bourbon Street smashing into things, right? Smashing windows, spray painting cars, and you have the New Orleans Police Department, the glutathione and melatonin coming onto Bourbon Street, handcuffing themselves to those reactive oxygen species and getting them off of Bourbon Street. But what does the New Orleans Police Department do when they get overwhelmed? They take those reactive oxygen species and they put them in a paddy wagon. They attach them to the exterior of the ESS60 molecule so they can't run around like little bumper cars. And then when the New Orleans Police Department can replenish the glutathione, replenish the melatonin, then they can handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. And that's why we say that the ESS60 molecule is the boss, a buffering oxidative stress system. And again, the summary is reducing the negative impact of stress mitochondria, which should lead to systemic benefits, which should lead to head-to-toe testimonials, which we certainly have.
So it's different for everyone. But what I'm hearing is all of these things make you feel better. If you're sleeping better, if you have more energy, then kind of everything else falls in line.
Yeah. I mean, we get to it's interesting because I'll get on different podcasts with kind of people with different, specific areas of expertise. And they'll be like, hey, would this help with the heart? And I'm like, well, do heart cells have mitochondria? Yes, they do. How about the liver? With muscles, with training, we actually have a 2-time U.S. ultra running champion. His name is Anthony Kunkel. Won a U.S. championship at 50 miles, a U.S. championship at 100K. He is doing oxidative stress to his body. Like when he's running 50 miles, he's doing that. And the conversation with him was my first conversation with him was really interesting. He started off by saying, hey, I was taking 1 serving of your product. I didn't really notice anything. And then I joke, like all good biohackers, he tripled the servings. By the way, don't triple everything. There's lots of things that you absolutely should not triple. Rapamycin always comes to my mind if you're playing around with that. But when he tripled it, he said, I was blown away. I believe that your product could be the difference between somebody running as a career or running as a hobby. And he went on to say, I don't believe it speeds exercise recovery. I believe it prevents damage in the first place. And the reason he said it is because on the last 5 miles of a 50-mile run, which is a phrase you will never hear again. But on the last 5 miles of a 50-mile run, where strength and stability used to be a problem, they're no longer a problem. And so, and that fits that boss theory, right? If you've got these ESS60 molecules holding on to that extra oxidative stress that Anthony's muscles are creating because he's pushing so hard so long, and then the body's given that buffer so that it can replenish that glutathione and melatonin, then it just makes perfect sense.
How? Tell me about your wife and perimenopause, menopause, and how it helped her. And others.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was the frequent and severe headaches, right? And I already had my own story. And let me steal this conversation away from my wife, but I'll bring it back. So I am the geeky guy that you see in front of you. I have a spreadsheet back to 2014 tracking my 4 to 5 migraines per year. And the reason I was tracking them is because they suck, and I was trying to figure out what was causing them so I could get rid of them. When I started taking our product on a regular basis in 2018, I went 18 months without a single migraine. So I should have had 6 or 7 at this point. At the 18th month mark, I went off the product to join our sleep study, and that's when I got my first migraine in 18 months. I will share, because I'm always transparent, I do get 1 or 2 per year, but the severity is dramatically different. I get a kind of aura in my peripheral vision. I get one sliver of my vision that looks like a kaleidoscope that starts on the exterior, moves to the very center of vision, but I can work through it. Like it's not go to my bed, get under the covers, air conditioning, no sound, no light. No, I'm literally working through it. It's hard to read through it. I don't know if you've ever tried to read through a kaleidoscope. Like that's not a fun endeavor. It actually hurts, but I can record a podcast or I can listen to a podcast. I can actually continue to do work. And that's where I sit. That was probably the most. In my wife's case, I remember she used to get 9+ migraines per month. And I remember the number 9 because there's a drug, a migraine medication, Sumatrin. I'm close. I don't think that's right. But they would only give her 9 per month. She wasn't allowed to take more than 9. So she would really get like 13. She'd had to suffer through 4 each month. And then, it can be hard to convince your spouse to do stuff, right? Like that you have any sort of expertise. It took me a long time. I'm not saying I shoved a spoonful of olive oil into her mouth, but that might have happened. And when I finally got that to happen, the migraines went down to 1 or 2 per month or even every other. Right.
That's
so there was
great.
a dramatic reduction. It turns out that your mitochondria produce pregnenolone. I think that's right, which is the precursor to estrogen and testosterone. So a very important thing to have, right, as you're going through menopause, as you're going through this transition. So the testimonials. And she made me put this, if you're watching, I have a bottle which says menopause support on it. And it's literally the same bottle, right? She's just like, you need this on it, because she'll go to conferences with me and she like very proudly pulls out, like, I made this, which is the same stuff, but it's got the label on it.
But sometimes we need to hear it differently, right? We need to know it's
Yes,
made just for us. Well,
exactly.
so the important part now, for someone who wants to try it, do you sell it online? Do you
Yeah.
distribute it to other people, or how does that work?
I made a special link for your audience, right? So,
Great.
and there's a coupon code, and I'm not going to get the coupon code. You need to go to the link.
Super.
So,
Okay, great.
the link is myvitalc.com/Natalie T, right?
Okay.
And a couple things you'll find there. First, at the very top, I did do a longevity summit. I interviewed 57 experts in longevity, including Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, Dr. Stephen Gundry. In that longevity summit, I asked all of them, every single one of them, for tips and tricks, right? Biohacking tips. So there's 18. I consolidated those down to 18 biohacking tips. That PDF is absolutely free at that link. We just need your name and email, but they can get that link for free. So take advantage of that. As you scroll down the page, we have discounts as high as 40% on your landing page. That's just especially for your audience. They cannot find that on the website. 40% off. What you'll see our oral product. This is the olive oil product 2, 3, and 6. The highest discount is, of course, on the 6. The reason we're aggressive with the 6 is we talked about it being a 3-month experience. So maybe you want to buy those 6, have 3 months for yourself, give 3 months to somebody else who might need that experience as well. Or you could do what I would do. I would be selfish and I would keep all 6, but there is a 40% discount there. I mentioned a cosmetic, just kind of funny. It's a 2-part cosmetic. One is a peptide called UTH29, which stands for Youth 29. Turns out that that's the perfect age to stop aging, right? Enough sophistication and enough youth. And our ESS60 molecule, we could have shoved these together because the peptide is water soluble, the ESS60 molecule is oil soluble. We decided to keep them separate so we don't use an emulsifier. That's how you would normally shove oil and water things together. I will share that the Boulder Longevity Institute, their team came up to us at A4M, and this is a little bit of hyperbole, but they were basically like, hey, that oral product that might make me live longer, I'm not interested. That oral product that might, I don't know, improve stuff, I'm not interested. I'm actually here at your booth for your Reduo set. So that is one of the things. It's called as you scroll down the page, it's called our Inside Out set, which is the oral version plus the Reduo set. Again, that's in a 2, 3, 6. On each one of these, there is a discount for subscription. Even if you only want 2 months, it comes in. For 2, it's every 2 months. For 3, it's every 3 months. For 6, it's every six months. Even if you just want one, take advantage of that additional discount. Also take advantage of the coupon there. Our customer service team has 1,000 5-star reviews on Google. They're not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. They're trained to help you, and they do an amazing job. It just turns out that most people stay on subscription. And then when you go down, the thing that I'm probably most proud of on that page is I do have my book, Live Longer and Better. Your journey to living longer and better has never been more achievable than today. It's available on Amazon for $19.99. It's available on that landing page for $19.99. For $10 extra, I will autograph the book. 100% of that $10 fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. So you may remember an amazing movie called The Sound of Freedom, amazing movie about a horrible topic, which is child exploitation. Operation Underground Railroad is doing a great job of trying to wipe that off of our planet. It should have never been on our planet. 100% of that signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad.
You were doing a lot of things, and I'm excited. Yeah, it's great, and doing a lot of things to help a lot of people. Well, I'm excited to try it, and I appreciate you explaining it and just always learning. I mean, I feel like that's the most important thing for our health, is that we are open to learning and getting better every day. And we can't do that if we're not listening to podcasts and reading and doing all the things to help ourselves.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. Look forward to talking to you again.